Welcome, wise women forward listeners. We're here today to talk with the great Margaret Cho. Most of you know her as a comedian. We also know her as an activist and just an incredible person. And one of my favorite ways that I know her is as the narrator and a participant in our movie, Wise Women Humanity's Untold Origins. So thanks for joining us, and let's get started.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yay. So, Margaret, I've just always found you extremely funny. One of the things that I love is that your comedy is very intelligent and personal, and you put whatever you believe in and what you're going through into the comedy. So, once you started going into menopause, what had you think about putting it into your comedy?
Oh, well, thank you. I think menopause, it's so interesting because it's really about the experience that we have in our bodies. And once you realize so much of what you believed was hormonal and that it wasn't you, that it was these decisions being made by a biological imperative that you had no control or choice over when I thought I had agency over all my choices, but really that was not the case at all. And getting to menopause and having all of those things, these like desires, these grievances, these kind of lost myths of who I thought I was, everything really falls away. You lose your mythology. That's the best way that I could put it. You really lose the Bible of who you thought that you were, and where you thought you were coming from, and what you thought you were doing, and you come from a new place that's from a higher origin and from a place of the mind rather from the uterus, from the gut.
Yeah,
It's
the
like you're
ovaries. Yeah.
you're coming from, yeah, you're not coming from your ovaries anymore. Who Your ovaries want children. Your ovaries want a provider. Your ovaries want a kind of safety that is found in society, whereas your higher self, your mind, wants so much more for you. And I didn't realize that. And so now my comedy is really about that. Like my comedy is now coming from I I thought I knew who I was, but I had no idea. And now I'm getting to know who that person is, and I really love her.
What I love about comedy is that good comedy comes from such a place of honesty. And it's like the vulnerability that you're willing to access to do that. Even in the film, we featured a segment that you had done on a morning show where you were talking about how much you love menopause, that you could wear white shorts. And it was just, it's just, we all need that relief. And it's kind of, we had another guest on where they talked about expressing being safer than holding back, right? And so the comedy has that kind of relationship with people that it's about expressing. I'm curious that we sent you a message about this kooky idea we had for this movie, and then you got involved. What was it? Did it flow out the way you figured it? Was it surprising what we were doing? How did it come about for you to want to help us out?
I feel like for me, it was really important to get involved because it was aligning with a message that I already knew in my heart was true. And I was just forming the words to express it. I was just forming the realization of it. And it's kind of like that's the thing about great ideas that everybody has them across the planet at the same time, but all in different places. And so when you can come together with people who are like-minded, who are also feeling the same things, but you also are feeling different aspects of the same kind of zeitgeist, which is what it is. It's like a zeitgeist. It's something that like sort of takes over everything. And menopause is a thing, like we're coming into a consciousness. Of course, we've had aging women from the beginning of time, but we've never thought to unionize. And now this is like the first time that I've really seen a consciousness around talking about menopause in a way that is really what it is, which is a time of greatness, a time of great power, a time of coming into that power with honor and insight and a privilege that we didn't even know we had.
Yeah, I love the notion of unionize. It's another word for community.
Yeah.
It's what made us is that community. It's what's going to move us to what's next. And I personally am optimistic that as women unionize or we capture community, it's going to happen fast. We're going to get this done fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that.
So
Absolutely.
I see that in your work, you're also getting behind the camera and supporting other women and trans women to do comedy, to come together in different aspects. What do you see as things that you're going to keep doing to bring forward this idea of the importance of wise women, the importance of women as they age?
I think it's about really stepping into the role of being a wise woman, and really stepping into the role of the crone and not being afraid to actually do. So, I end up talking to a lot of women, especially in comedy, a lot of younger women in comedy, and kind of dealing with their issues day to day with the industry and with, being able to apply my experience to what they're going through and maybe ease some of their suffering around it. Women also who are kind of locked in that hormonal cycle who don't realize it's a hormonal cycle. They just don't know. And so I'm trying to edge them toward a place where they can understand it, but also knowing that they may not fully get it until they get to menopause. So there's that. There's also the other track of supporting trans women who are on their own journey of a kind of puberty and a kind of understanding of womanhood, which I think is such a wonderful thing to be able to do, a wonderful service to be able to lend, to really be a big sister in that. And that takes on a lot of aspects, whether it's teaching a young trans woman how to do her makeup, to actually producing a young trans woman's comedy special, which I'm also doing. So those kinds of things I think are really valuable, and they are an essential part of being a wise woman.
We have noticed that younger generations are further along in what they're willing to tolerate. And that just makes me so happy. We look at our daughter and you as you're mentoring younger comedians or younger people. Are you noticing that as well?
Yes, definitely. I think that young women have it so much better because they have all of these years of feminism to really look back on and really see how the patriarchy has really messed us up for so long. And they're willing to get out and ahead of it and get out in front of it. There's so much of um, a sort of a overall idea of like decentering men, which is a big thing on social media and a big thing out there in the younger women's like world. They're like, okay, what if we actually just took patriarchy and move it to the side? What do our lives look like then? That to me is so powerful and revolutionary, and it helps men actually because patriarchy also harms men. So it's like, what if we actually just moved it all, not, and just to as an experiment, just to see, like somebody like me, I could never imagine that happening. And now that's just a regular part of everyday discourse. It's powerful.
Yeah, we see what I think is very poignant are women pointing out that a matriarchy isn't a replacement for a patriarchy.
No,
It's something much more broad than that, right?
Yeah, it's not let's take the men out and put women in those spots. Those spots are gone because we're coming from the community and all the voices coming together. Yeah.
right.
So in making this movie, um, and we have some really phenomenal heavy hitters from the Hollywood community in this movie, like Jonathan Sanger and Will Nix and Madeline Denono, who's the CEO of the Gina Davis Institute. But the other thing that we saw is that Hollywood is in a flux and it's kind of I feel like a bit broken and doesn't really fully understand how to portray women of our age and go forward and support who we are. How do you feel about that?
I think that Hollywood needs to catch up because for so long we would see women in their very young era, like the ingenues, and then we wouldn't see them again until they're playing the mother of the bride, and that there's so much life between there. Like, where are those women? And where are those stories? Why aren't we hearing those stories? I think that's one of the reasons why I think Nicole Kidman, I'm working on something with her right now, and that she specifically seeks out female directors, female writers. She's only going to do women's stories from now on. And somebody of that stature who has lived a lifetime in this industry. She has been the ingenue up until, till now. And so now she's really like, I'm going to amplify women's voices. And that's really significant.
Yeah, and like for instance, the way that you play the psychiatrist on Will Trent, I love that show, and I love
Thank you. I do
you
too.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and the point is on it, it's all about what you're doing, not who you are. It doesn't matter. It's the wisdom that you're portraying. Doesn't matter what age. So that's really wonderful.
I'm thrilled when you say that you're working with Nicole Kidman because, she really was stuck in the patriarchal system. She was the center of it in a way, right? Of the accolades. And I remember
And the
um,
longtime ingenue.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, for the movie Days of Thunder was sort of when she came on the scene, and I actually was working on the music part of that film a little bit. So I just remember the way they were talking about her, and it's so great that I think our culture is ready to accept that she would be willing to do this, and that's so
Yeah.
important. And I'm so good with that she's willing to do that, and it's just so
Yeah.
important for her to do, and other women doing it as well. Do you have other examples of that come to mind of people who you're like going, oh yeah, go for it, let's do this, let's evolve.
Well, Gina Davis too. I mean, Gina Davis has spent a lifetime in this industry, and she's done just so much incredible work as throughout as an ingenue, and then coming into a place of being a wise woman, now having her film festival, now really kind of being in charge of so much of what's happening artistically while still doing amazing acting while still being out there. So, that's an example of what we mean when we're talking about wise women, actually like taking over more of these responsibilities artistically and creatively and supporting other women to do their dreams, to live their dreams.
Indeed. Are there ways that when you're, because I know that you're quite close with other comedy women, are there, conversations that you guys are having about, putting things into the world or shifting your narratives, or,
Shaking things up.
is that going on, or are we going to see more?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I think that you're seeing like especially in comedy, like most recently with the roast of Kevin Hart, and you saw the really disparaging, really racist, sexist, horrible jokes made by these MAGA representative male comedians, and how but truly how women dominated that arena. That the only thing that you came away with was listening to Chelsea Handler speak or listening to Cheryl Underwood, my very, very good friend. She's somebody and I've known and loved for decades and worked alongside. And, she got the brunt of it where people, out disproportionately making fun of her skin, her hair, the fact that her husband had committed suicide, just these off, they're not even jokes. They're just the representation of their absolute hatred of Black womanhood, and
Mm.
that they were trying to disparage her, and she came out just swinging, so powerful. That's just undeniable. Her strength and her majesty could not be denied. And she just had to barely lift her little finger and show her ability to do that. And that's really the role of the goddess. That is the role of the wise woman. And that she was kind enough to show us that power, in the tiniest effort, she's like giving forth and everybody was obliterated. So, that I think was the microcosm of the wise woman taking over, that whole thing. And I'm grateful because it introduced her to another new audience, an audience that needs to hear her. This sort of male, very MAGA, they think they've got it together. They think they've got the jokes, but they really don't. They don't have anything compared to the women.
Yeah, absolutely. So you hold a banner in your comedy, and you've held a banner throughout for different things. So right now you're holding a banner for women's wisdom, women's empowerment. Do you ever think about holding a banner other than just in comedy? So not to get political, but running for things or,
Sure,
putting in front.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I have lived with on the sideline in the margins of political life my entire life. I mean, even before I was a comedian, my first gay pride, which was a resistance march, I attended in 1978. So, there was a life in politics even before any of this. The people that were surrounding my family were early supporters of Harvey Milk. So there's been a political vein running through my existence throughout. So it's sort of an inevitable thing. I don't know exactly what office I would run for if that was something that would become apparent. I don't really know. But what I do know is that I will always be involved in politics, that I will always be involved in finding those people who can really take us to the next level. I worked on the Obama campaign, I worked on the Kamala campaign. I wanted these candidates to win. Of course, Obama did very successfully, and that was an incredible presidency, which it's sad because we saw through him and Michelle what the presidency could offer, what this office could be. I would love to see that again, and I think that we will. I think that we will have somebody of that stature who will bring us to a place. I honestly believe that somebody's got to fix what's going on now, and it's got to be soon.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm with you. I use the Obamas as a brain cleanser. When things get so bad, I just look up their videos. And now with the new stuff with their institute in Chicago, I'm like, ooh, I've got great stuff to watch to like kind of go, oh, things can be okay. So let's
Yeah.
recreate that. Yeah.
Well, for me, it was very refreshing to see some of the stuff come out of the opening of his library on Thursday. That was like, yeah, well, okay, I remember this kind of civility that still exists. But also, it's like when I consider how shitty things went after the Obama presidency, it's an indication of how good he did. Right? They
Yeah.
to try to stamp that down, they had to get so aggressive, so ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And what that is that's really it's the sign of the end times for that whole idea. It's the sign of the end times of the patriarchy. One of the things that we experienced, because we've been working on this whole project for a long time, is at first it was just about, oh, we're going to talk about menopause. Ooh, wow, right? But we really built what I am happy to be saying is a pretty radical film. And so as we have audiences experience it now, I think in the screening that we did with you in LA for it, we had somebody say, fuck the patriarchy, right? And now they had these comedians saying, no, it's done. It's got to be replaced with a matriarchy. Is it sort of like, are we in the phase of the dark before the rise, the turmoil before the cleansing for you?
Yes, and I think that it is a kind of, well, it's the extinction burst, when like the patriarchy is kind of in this last throes of trying to really like use its dying strength to still assert a kind of power that you saw even last week with the horrible UFC fighter saying Michelle Obama is a man. How disgusting.
Yeah.
This racist idea that was really something that was brought up around from slavery to not allow Black women rest. And they would constantly say that these women are strong as men, and they could do this. And it's so foul to say something like that. Also, so dismissive and trivial to uh, trivialize trans women's lives as to make that a joke. Also to dehumanize it really makes it easier to slaughter people. That's what genocide looks like. That's it's so many issues with that kind of a statement made publicly on the world stage, which happens to be a UFC octagon. That is what our
But
world stage is
Yeah, to
now.
begin with,
well, it's
hugely
such a
wrong.
thing to note because it's sometimes people can moderate their behavior or learn things with subtlety. Sometimes they need to be hit in the head with a bat.
Yeah.
What just happened in our White House, man? If that wasn't a bat, and that's the whole thing. We don't need. There's going to be like 25, 30% of people who will never change. They're just always going to be the same. It's that 4 or 5% who have to just shift and then they'll be gone.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's just like it's so extreme that it's it's comical.
Yeah.
But they're threatened by it, and that's how powerful womanhood is, wise womanhood, which is Michelle Obama is the perfect example of a wise woman. That's how powerful her wise womanhood is, that they have to try to make her a man
Yeah.
because she could, she's just too powerful, too great. And so it's laughable that they would try to take down somebody as magnificent as that. And if that's your weapons, that
Yeah.
you're going to
Yeah.
lose.
Well, it's also
And
the
the
way
other,
in, it's the way into the hypothesis that we developed because the whole as to why academia didn't get there was the men who were running academia just couldn't imagine that it was driven by women. They
Right.
kept trying to figure out how is this driven by men, and it doesn't work because it wasn't. And
Yeah.
so the whole reason that we have what we're talking about now is because men just couldn't conceive that women could be the leaders.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
So then it's time to move forward. And since our podcast is Wise Woman Forward, what does that mean to you? What does that have you envision?
Think but it for me it really means like we have to take it by force and we have to move forward by force and we have to get rid of our niceties and the ways that we were socialized to behave as women, as polite girls who didn't um speak over the men, who didn't interrupt the men. And now it's about interrupting the men and doing it in a very big way and making our voices heard if by force, if necessary, probably necessary. To really get rid of all of these things that we were raised with, just in the same way that we got rid of all these like biological imperatives that our ovaries are pushing us towards. Now that we don't have that, we don't need to suffer any of that. We don't need to no gods, no masters. Really, it's that simple.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. So, everyone who's listening, who hasn't watched the film, please watch The Wise Women, Humanity's Untold Origins with Margaret's amazing, intelligent voice and just some of the ways that you even do the narration, like your inflection, phenomenal, and you bring humor into everything and uplift it. So thank you for being with us today, and thank you for being part of this journey with us. And we hope to hear more and more of all the amazing things that you're doing.
And
Oh,
links will
wonderful.
be in the
Thank you.
description for
Yeah,
Margaret and for our movie.
yeah.
And so great to have you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much.